You're not choosing a partner, you're choosing a plot. And that might be why every new person keeps taking you back to the same place. Most of us believe that we have a type. But what if the attraction you feel is less about who they are and more about how they fit the story in your head? This is where it gets risky, because once someone feels familiar, you might start ignoring what's actually happening in reality. By the end of this episode, you'll know why your type might be less fixed than you think, how attraction turns into projection, and how to spot when you're casting someone into an old story instead of seeing the person in front of you. The truth is that most people don't have a type, and research shows that the traits people say they want often don't predict who they end up with. Someone might list humor, ambition, and emotional availability, and still end up attached to someone who fails half the list. Attraction isn't always logical. Sometimes you don't like someone because they're right for you. You like them because they wake up a feeling you already know. So maybe type is the wrong word. Maybe what you keep choosing is a familiar setup. Someone gives you just enough attention to make you interested, but not enough to make you secure. They're warm enough to keep you hoping, but distant enough to keep you trying. So your mind starts filling in the gaps. That's how the plot starts. You stop looking at what's actually happening and start examining what it could mean. So before you know it, you're not choosing the person in front of you. You're choosing the version of them that fits your story. And maybe there is a connection, but there's also a role you're hoping they'll play. You've taken a real person with real limits and placed them inside a script they may never have agreed to perform. And when you're attached to what they might become, disappointment doesn't make you step back. It makes you try harder. You stop asking whether they're good for you and start trying to become good enough for them. And suddenly, this feels less like a relationship and more like an audition. You stop looking at what's actually being offered and start trying to become the person who finally gets chosen. That's the trap. The plot doesn't just change how you see them, it changes how you behave. You become more willing to accept less than you want because the story keeps promising that patience will eventually pay off. Compatibility isn't something you can fully know from the first spark. A spark can signal interest, but it can also show you what you want to believe. But neither one can tell you whether someone is actually good for your life. That takes evidence. When you want something to work, tiny things start to feel bigger than they are. One good message lifts your mood. One warm evening feels like progress. One moment of attention starts carrying more meaning than it should. A healthy connection doesn't keep asking you to survive on hints. So if you keep choosing the same kind of person, notice what happens to you around them. Do you feel steady? Or do you feel like you have to work for every bit of attention? Do you feel seen? Or do you keep waiting for them to finally show up properly? Familiar doesn't always mean right. Chemistry doesn't always mean this is good for you. Attraction can get your attention, but it shouldn't make the decision for you. So slow down before you turn someone into the answer. Notice whether you like who they are, or whether you're holding on to what you hope they could become. The person who's good for your life may not give you the dramatic ending you were looking for. They may not make the old rejection disappear. They may not turn the chase into victory. They may not give you that huge, cinematic feeling of finally being chosen by the one person who always felt just out of reach. But they might give you something better. They might give you a relationship where you're not constantly trying to become more impressive, more patient, or easier to want. They might give you enough steadiness that you can stop performing for love and start actually being in it.